Hey y'all, how you doing? It's Valerie here, and I garden in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains in Zone 6B. Oh. And on my last video, we were in the middle of tilling our top field, and I told you that I would grab my camera and bring you along when we got back out there. However, my husband Dalton got out there and finished it yesterday, and to be honest, I did not come outside. I did. I got a few 4x4s that we had outlining beds. And then I put some rocks in a pile that were in the way. But then after I did that, I was just done. I was having one of those off days and I just couldn't do anymore. So I didn't even get my camera out. He was out here all alone. And I just want to show you what he finished. Well, alone for the most part after I got some stone and some boards out of the way. I did at one point bring him some water, so other than that, I just kind of stayed inside and did some inside things that need done, because some days you just have to take it a little easy and maybe get some of your inside things done. So I'm going to take you up to my top garden and just show you the tilling, and then I'll come back on here. So here it is, all tilled up. We need to still clean our mess. This is the bucket where we were collecting, fencing and trash and that kind of stuff. These tarps down here are the tarps that will go back over this field. Right now we're kind of leaving them off on purpose, so any seeds that were unearthed will sprout. And then we can cover them and use the silage tarps to hopefully get rid of most of them. They're not actual silage tarps. They're tarps that we're using as silage tarps. All right. We do have to come through and pick up stone because we have rocky ground. But we'll come through and we'll pick up stone and then we'll cover it again. Everything that we worked on in the fall is coming back. There's one of my climbing roses. There's my clematis coming back. Here is one of my mini raspberry plants. Got 4 of those. So far, the only things that haven't leafed out yet are the grapevines and my fig tree. Those didn't leaf out until late last year anyways. I mean, if you look around, I don't know if you can see this, but the deciduous trees have not leafed out in our area yet. So I just remember last year thinking my grapes weren't going to come back, and then because they leaf out a little bit later than some of these other things, and I was just convinced they weren't going to come back, but they did. So I'm still giving them more time. But so far my fig tree and the grapes are the only things that haven't shown signs of growth, but they definitely still could. There's my other clematis. It's got more growth than the one on the other side, but they're both grown back, which is great. Oh, there's a bumble. You see, bumbles are very cute to me. And then my other climbing rose. These got cut way back in the fall, so they're having to put on a bunch of new growth, and hopefully with more room and better soil for their roots and less rock compaction, they will take off and get some major growth this year. This is the other field I wanted to show. This right here is just more tarps for covering the field behind me. And that over there is just our pile of stone that I'm going to use to rebuild the beds in this once I get my fencing up, which will be fairly soon, hopefully. So I just wanted to show you this. He also got a lot of this field tilled up. He still has a patch there, but he did it until he ran out of gas, and it was getting pretty late in the evening. So this was a stopping point. He'll get out here on another day and finish up this part of the field. But along this top is where I'm wanting to do an espalier garden. And then a berry patch. But this year for sure we're putting a double row here for more tomatoes. I grew a lot of tomatoes, and even though I'm putting 2 double rows in this garden when we retool it, it's still not going to be quite enough for all the tomato plants I have. So in the field that I just showed you, we're going to be putting a tomato area. I'm going to put in an espalier area up at the top and a berry patch. And then the rest of it's going to be filled in with all those flowers that I'm growing. And probably my onions and potatoes will go in this field that needs to be finished as well. Not the one behind me that's done, but the one that's in front of me that needs to be finished. I'll probably put my onions and potatoes in this area too once it's done. We are going to wrap the area behind me in more permanent fencing. We're going to use metal fencing. And then this area on the field that still needs to be done, we're going to use temporary fencing that'll last us probably several years before we have to really do something more permanent. But by putting metal fencing up, it'll enable us to get weeds out of the fencing without ripping it better, because that's one of the problems we was having in the garden behind me, is we would go to weed it, and because it was the vinyl fencing, it would rip. And we decided that we were going to just go ahead and put in metal fencing, so that way we could not only rip weeds out without ripping the fence, but if we needed to, we could flame weed around the fence if necessary, because most of the weeds that came into this garden spread from the outside in. They spread from outside the gate because we couldn't really outside the fence, not gate, but they spread from outside of the fence because we couldn't really weed around the fence properly without ripping it. And so this field that's not done yet is going to be temporary fencing, but eventually we're going to work towards having all of our fields wrapped in metal fencing. But for this year, this one's going to still be the vinyl. Maybe even for the next several years. It just depends on funds and how quickly we're able to actually get more permanent fencing in the ground. All this area is done. We just need to get it wrapped in fencing because we're leaving this for a walkway. And you can't really tell, but along this backside is a gully, so water runs down that from the hillside. So you can't really put anything there. And that bush over there is a flowering quince. It's really pretty. Oh, it looks like some of it's actually starting to flower. Let's see if I can go get that on camera. That's got really beautiful blooms, and it does produce edible fruit. I guess the fruit is mostly used for jams and that kind of thing, though. It's not really used for fresh eating. We decided to leave this wood up on this side just as a border. You know, here's the gully. There's water that runs through here when it rains. But that's the field. We still got to get that patch done. And then I can put temporary fencing up and we can come through and get some things planted. I think my tomato row is going to run, no, you can't tell, but probably from about where I'm standing all the way to the top, ending before my berry patch, because it's going to be two rows of espalier for trees, and then a berry patch. And then my tomato row is going to run quite far up the hillside, and it's going to be a double row, which means it's going to have two sets of trellises, or it's going to have two trellises, not two sets, because that would be four. It's going to have two trellises that are roughly set a foot apart, kind of like I have done in the top garden. So we're just going to copy that down here. Anywhere where there's space to grow that's not for my tomato trellises or my berry patch or my espalier patch, is going to be planted with just other things, mostly flowers. I'm just going to fill it up as much as I can. And in case you don't know what espalier is, it's where you take fruit trees and you grow them along a fence line or wires, so that way they're kept short and they grow outward. We recently went and took a grafting class, and we got 5 apple trees that we grafted, and it's on dwarf fruit stock. I'll take you and show you those in a second. They're not leafing out yet, so we don't know if they've taken. And I also have 2 persimmon trees that a lovely friend gave me that she grew from seed, and we're going to espalier all those, so that way we can fit more plants in a smaller space. So that's the plan for that. So here are the fruit trees we grafted, and they had extra rootstock, so we got a couple extra ones, and we're able to do a couple of the trees we already have here. But the rest of them, like, there's 3 of them that we tried from our own trees. That one, and that one. But the one with the pink flags on them, those are from the grafting class. And he did say that we take them home and put them in sawdust or mulch or compost until they start to leaf out. And then when they start to leaf out, you plant them. But you want to plant them somewhere where you can kind of keep an eye on them for the next year or so before they get planted in their final spot, if at all possible. But until they leaf out, he said put them in sawdust, moist sawdust, or compost. And said to keep them like in a basement or something, but we don't have a basement. So I have them here under these trees where it stays really shady and they're protected. Because the main thing is you don't want this like hot sun beating down on them. And at this time of year, we're getting some hot days already. We've already had days in the 80s. So I've got them here under this tree where they're in the shade all day. And I guess it takes 3 weeks to a month for them to start to bud out. And this is maybe day 6, so there's not really there's no movement on that yet. We're just sitting here hoping that these trees take so we can get our orchard going. But they are on dwarf rootstock, which means they won't get very big. They're 6 to 8 feet tall, and because they are on dwarf rootstock, they do need to be staked, at least for the first several years. I guess after that, you can try to take the stakes off, but we're espaliering them so they'll be supported, so that kind of doesn't matter for us so much. If these do start to leaf out, we will be growing them up in 10-gallon cloth pots, like the ones you can get off of Amazon, until probably next fall, maybe next spring, but we will be growing them in pots for this first season, so that way we can make sure they're getting plenty of water and we can just keep an eye on them. Another project I'm needing to work on is right here beside my greenhouse on the hillside, not the pathway side. I'm going to put down a flower bed. I'm just going to make it out of, or garden bed. I'm just going to make it out of 4x4s. Some of those 4x4s we took out of the field that I just showed you. I'm going to use those over here. And I don't know if you remember, but last fall we potted up a bunch of alpine strawberries, and they're the white alpine strawberries. And they're in these grow bags in my yard still. There they are. That bag there, that bag there, and that bag there. The one that looks like it has nothing in it is asparagus. They just haven't started popping up yet. But the other 3 are alpine strawberries. So I'm going to make a bed here beside my greenhouse, and that's where I'm going to be putting them. I'm just going to lay down cardboard. I'm going to put my 4x4s on top of that, and then I'm going to backfill with compost. I don't have the compost yet. I think we're going to go get that maybe this upcoming week sometime. So sometime between now and not this coming weekend, but next weekend, we should have compost. I'm not quite sure. I know it's coming. And then whenever I get to that, or when I get the compost, I'll plant those strawberries. But for now, I want to go ahead and start working on getting this bed made. So I'm going to go get my tripod and set you down, and then get started on at least laying the cardboard and see how far I get, because it could rain at any moment. I did have to pull these daffodils out of the walkway of where I'm going to be planting those strawberries, but I don't have to worry about them right away because they'll still be fine. They're not going to die just sitting here. But I do need to get them out of my way because this is kind of the walkway on my porch. So I'm just going to take one of the extra grow bags I have and just set them down in there for now, and they can kind of live there until I get them transplanted.
Belief versus proof, knowledge versus application, experience versus theory, trust or wisdom. It's a wild world. It's a wild world. The juxtaposition of trust and wisdom isn't a conditional schism nor a division. Trust is the...
All right, so I think I'm done with this project for right now. It's not going quite as smoothly as I'd hoped, but I do have boards down at least to keep the cardboard from blowing away. And I will come out here at a different point that's not right now and put the rest of the boards down and arrange them so they're in place a little better. If you saw me bending sticks right there, that was some of this shrub that I cut down. I think it's a black walnut. But, I mean, I still got more to cut down. But I cut down some of it yesterday, the stuff that was closest to where I'm doing this bed. And I just took some of those branches and bent them and put them in the ground to use as stakes to keep my logs from rolling down the hill, because they are on a hillside. Some of it's more on a hillside than the rest. Eventually, they will settle into place and kind of make an indention in the ground where they'll be less prone to roll. But until then, I do have these little stakes that I made. If I find later on for some reason they're breaking down, or they're not strong enough, or they're just not in the ground enough, I will either put more in or I will get something stronger. But I really feel like only the one board was wanting to roll down the hill on its own, and I might take some more of those and just kind of put behind that specific board. This is just a rough garden bed. It's not anything fancy. Later on down the line, I may take these boards out and redo them. I just need something for now, and I'm reusing the materials that came off that top garden that we're redoing, and, well, the field that we're redoing and getting tilled up. I like to reuse materials. I may one day put in something a little more permanent here. I feel like that's a great farm/garden tip. Use what you have. It doesn't have to be the most fancy thing. It just has to work. If it works, then it's right. If it doesn't work, then it's incorrect. Anything else is just someone's opinion. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that tell you need to do this or you need to do that. Honestly, just find what works for you, and that's what you should do. And for me, it's reusing materials, because instead of investing in materials to make this bed, like buying brand new border or getting raised beds, I would rather invest that money in compost. And for me, it's either or. I can't do both, so I have to choose. And for me, the soil is more important than what's edging my bed. And honestly, I don't mind the look of the 4x. Well, I guess some of them are 4x6s and some of them are 4x4s. Some of them have started to break down. Eventually, though, once this strawberry bed's a little bit older, it's going to just become part of the ground, so to speak. It's just going to have its own area. These boards will eventually decompose. And at that time, I can choose to do something better. I have so much stone in my soil. Eventually, if I have the energy and the wherewithal, all of these beds around my house may be stone. I have a lot of stone beds around my house already, and because I have so much stone in my ground, the rest of them may become stone. But in the meantime, it's easier just to lay some 4x with some cardboard and then fill in the area with compost, and then I'm ready to plant these strawberries that lived in a container all last summer, and then they got in these grow bags in the fall, and they've lived in the winter in these grow bags, and I just feel like they would probably really appreciate just being put in the ground, so I'm working towards that. Like I said, I at least got enough boards out here to hold the cardboard down, so if it does get windy and stormy, it doesn't blow away. And also, over the next couple of days, I'll be able to test, especially once it does start raining, how well my stakes are keeping those boards from slipping over the edge. Eventually, they'll kind of work their way into the ground, like there'll be an indention where the boards are. They'll kind of sink a little bit's what I'm trying to say, and they'll kind of stay in place because they'll be in a divot that they've created from their weight. Until then, we've got stakes, and I think it's a good example of using what's around you and using what you have. I guess that's where I'm going to end this video for today, because there is a chance I will get back out here and work on this evening. But also, there's a chance that this rain's going to finally blow in, and if so, I won't have the opportunity to. I'm going to leave this bed where it is for now and call it a day. I really, truly appreciate you guys so much for hanging out with me. It makes all my gardening jobs so much better and so much more interesting just to have people to hang out with and to talk about it with. Use what you have. If you want to grow, just use what you have. If all you have is a bowl, you can put a plant in a bowl. If all you have is a nursery pot, you can put a plant in a nursery pot. If all of you have are old 2x4s or 4x4s, you can use those as garden borders. I think I'm being a little redundant at this point, so I will see you on the next one. Bye.